So kimonos are still used in Japan, but less frequent than in previous generations. The kimono was introduced probably around the Nara period, which was a long time ago, around 700 AD, and has continued until current day Japan. It's slightly evolved, but the general basic principles of kimono wearing and kimono styles have stayed the same. Today in modern day Tokyo, you will often see kimonos in tourist areas, and also in some traditional tea houses and at tea events, and of course at kabuki. In Kyoto, on the other hand, kimonos are far more common, worn by everyday people, usually women, but sometimes men. Today I hope to explain some of the wonderful world of kimonos, and hopefully once you've watched this video, you'll feel confident to wear kimonos yourself. Let's begin with some history. Now, as I said, the kimono has had a long tradition, but in current day Japan there are probably about 3 or 4 main styles of kimono, usually worn by women. Pardon my pronunciation, so let's begin. The mokufuku is used at weddings, and it is a white kimono. It's a full white kimono, and really it is only used at weddings, and it is the most formal style of kimono. The next is the tome sode, and that is used usually by, actually it's always used by married women. And there are 2 styles. You have a iro sode and you also have a kuro being black, of course. This is used, as I said, by married women and for formal occasions, tea ceremonies, and also of course weddings. Now if you come to Tokyo, you will often see young ladies, and sometimes not so young ladies, wearing a long sleeve kimono, maybe from about here to about here. This is called a furi sode, and a furi sode is usually worn by non-married women. However, as I said, in Kyoto and in Tokyo, where tourists gather, you will often see tourists, regardless of whether they're married or not, wearing this style of kimono. This style of kimono is very colorful and very hade, very fancy. The next branch, I guess, of kimono styles is the semi-formal ones. And the most common 2 are hogyumongi and sukesage. Now the hogyumongi was introduced during the Taisho period. After Tokugawa's fall and the emperor moved from Kyoto back to Tokyo, the Emperor Meiji was in charge. His tenure was very long. After him came Taisho, and tenure Taisho had a very short period, maybe about 10 years. And in this time, this hogyumongi became popular. And this was actually introduced by Mitsukoshi, which is a large department store here in Japan. And it's a little bit less fanciful and a little more easy to wear, especially for women. The next style of semi-kimono for semi-formal kimonos is the sukesage. So the sukesage is a far less fanciful kimono, and that was introduced during the Showa period. And the reason for that is obviously during the Showa period was World War II, and afterwards Japan was very, very poor, and so beautiful materials were just not available. So this was used as an alternative for that. The traditional materials for kimono is silk, kinu, and of course cotton, which is mem. But after the war, of course, these valuable materials were very hard to get. So this alternative, this sukesage, was used during the Showa period for people who wished to use kimonos. Then the semi-formal kimonos finish, and now we go on to the more casual kimonos, and the most common of that is called komon. And this is what I'm wearing, a komon, which is a simple basic style of kimono, and it's used for everyday use as well as sometimes for tea ceremonies and some other occasions. If you go even more informal, to the ultimate casual, you'll come across summer kimono or yukata. Now today, as you can see outside, we have a beautiful summer's day here in Tokyo, and Tokyo gets very warm. So the yukata is primarily made out of cotton. The yukata doesn't have some of the more formal features of a kimono, and it doesn't have an under kimono, if you like, or a naga juban. However, you still see it sometimes used with a naga juban to make it a little bit more formal and a little bit more like a summer kimono. So in this video, I hope to explain a little bit more about kimonos, but focusing more on men's kimonos. There are many videos out there focusing on women's kimonos, but in the next part of this video, I'd like to focus on the men's kimonos.